All right, back here on Titans Talk, more analysis and breakdown of what happened in that game and the decision last week to fire John Robinson, Keith Bullock, Jonathan Hutton, JB, myself, on the local power companies of Middle Tennessee Sunday Sports Central last night. Guys, the Titans were embarrassed last week in Philadelphia, and on Tuesday, Amy Adams-Strunk fired John Robinson. What should she be thinking now after hearing her team booed off the field in the second half of a terrible loss at home?
Well, it's kind of tough for me to tell for the simple fact that she has a playoff caliber team and she fires the GM in the middle of the season. Pretty much at the end of the season, there's still a lot of football to play, but it wasn't a great showing after this firing of John Robinson. So for me personally, it's kind of tough what Ms. Amy is thinking personally.
Keith, I would be thinking it's time to get the next general manager hire right, because the personnel on the field is awful. I mean, this roster and the structure is beyond what we've seen. I'm with you on the timing, but moving forward, they've got to identify candidates. That's also a part of the answer she gave the Associated Press. They need to identify candidates that meet her criteria and Mike Vrabel's, because right now there are a lot of betas and not many alphas, and that's a requirement for the way you play Mike Vrabel football.
And the Titans had been taking care of business against inferior teams up until today. They were 6-0 against teams with losing records. How concerned are you guys that this happened against a below 500 team that they pretty much mastered over the last several years?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm not concerned, but after the last 3 games, it's kind of tough. You know, we said it can go one way or another, and the Titans are trending down right now. You know, they are a playoff team, but they have to keep winning games to sustain that position, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and I don't take this as this is a Mike Vrabel issue, but it is. I think he now enters the toughest stretch of his tenure since he took over. It's the first 3-game losing streak since 2018. And when you think about what he's up against, when he preaches the mantra of next man up, and the owner is telling you the next man up is not good enough, he's got to continue the message of stay the course. We're talking about playoffs and how we win instead of the offseason, which is what we're talking about here and moving forward in December.
As you mentioned, it's the first 3-game losing streak since his first season as coach, week 7 of that season. Don't look now, but the division race is not over. As we take a look at the Farm Bureau Insurance AFC South standings, the Titans, who were once 7-3, now 7-6, just 2 games up on the Jags, who they finished the season against in Jacksonville. The Titans' magic number to clinch the division is still just 2, but Keith, they missed an opportunity today to eliminate the Jags from contention and cut that number down to 1. Are you at all concerned that they might actually blow this division lead?
I'm definitely not concerned that they'll blow the division lead, but they did miss a big opportunity against a reeling Jacksonville team. They had a very distracting week, so that could add to maybe the way that they played today, but in the NFL, there's no excuses. I do feel as if they'll get that 1-2 wins that they need and, you know, go into this playoff situation hopefully on a high note.
Well, Hutton, what about the long term? That's a young Jaguars team led by a second-year quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, first-year head coach who's already won a Super Bowl in Doug Peterson. They came in here and won, took care of business. As you look at all the AFC South teams, who do you think is positioned to make that magic run next year?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'll say Jacksonville for the future because of how they're building around Trevor Lawrence. They've had plenty of high draft picks. Now they have a coach who provides some stability. Nothing's guaranteed in Indianapolis. In Houston, they lack true leadership. The Titans are headed for a roster overhaul in some way, in a big way. And right now, I'd say the stability is with Jacksonville.
The lack of talent and lost momentum seem to be the big reasons Adams-Strunk made that move to part ways with John Robinson this week. And it was a stunning move after he managed to take the Titans from worst team in the league to 6 straight winning seasons. They just got a contract extension last February, but there have been several draft busts and free agency misses that have led to the deterioration of this roster and the struggles now this year.
It was time to move forward. There was no reason to go 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long we remain in the season. It was not fair to John. It was not fair to the team. You know, I'm just not that person that's going to sit on a decision like that.
Adams-Strunk parts ways with Robinson despite the fact this team was 7-5 and in first place once again. Guys, what do you make of the decision and perhaps just as important, the timing of the decision right now?
Well, I make the decision that, they were the #1 seed last year, and right now, every time that they played against the playoff team this year, they really haven't been in the games, except Cincinnati and Kansas City. They play tough, but they haven't really been competing. And, I guess Ms. Adams doesn't see a future this year, them winning a Super Bowl.
And the decision is Strunk's to make, obviously, but the timing of this is what's odd, especially considering the move was made on Tuesday. We didn't hear from her until the news dump time on Friday afternoon, and they put Vrabel out on Wednesday to answer questions that he couldn't answer. That was weak. She rarely has a misstep, but the timing of this for an organization that is extremely introverted, who doesn't deal in distraction and speculation, had a coach in a locker room who took questions about a massive decision surrounding the organization and its future. And guys, we've been around a while. We've seen some bad eras. This move was about the future, but this week felt more like the past than the present. And that's unfortunate for a team that was strictly about football until last week.
Well, now the message is clear that Amy Adams Strunk expects the Titans to win and compete for Super Bowl championships, but it also seems clear she doesn't think this year's team is good enough. I happen to agree. What kind of an impact do you think this had on the locker room preparing for this game this week?
Well, it's interesting. I felt it could have went one way or another. They could have looked at it as a rallying cry, or they could have had a game like they had today. So obviously it affected everyone in that locker room and coaches, players, everyone in that building. So it was a huge effect on the team.
Yeah, I thought they had a good plan to start the game, right? But look, it's a 7-5 team, which is trying to get healthy for the playoffs. They were told that they're 2 plays away from being a 5-win team with a top 10 draft pick right now if Washington and Indianapolis score in those games for which they won. Players know if they're a good team or not. They're not idiots. We all know. But this has always been a locker room that does not point fingers. And this week, instead of discussing how to win a football game, there was a distraction. There was speculation thrown into the mix. And those are 2 words, that you just don't say. We can't say words on TV. You don't say those words in the locker room over there at Baptist Sports Park.
That's right. The FCC won't allow it. Well, Amy Adams Strunk made it clear that this was her decision, and Mike Vrabel had nothing to do with it. But it also seems clear he now has the most power in the organization other than Miss Amy herself. Would you guys be okay with Mike Vrabel having 100% say in football decisions and roster building going forward?
Yeah, of course. He's the one that is playing the guys on he knows the food he wants to cook. You hear that expression all the time. So he should get the groceries. But my only objection is when you've seen it in the past, coaches get distracted, and I feel he would need a good football person, football mind around him that will disagree with him in tough situations.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because I do think he has the most power currently other than Amy Adams Strunk in ownership. But I think it's best to have general managers manage and coaches coach. But the key is Vrabel will have heavy input in whatever the new general manager does moving forward. And their relationship and philosophy on roster building needs to be in sync. Strunk said that there wasn't an issue with Robinson and Vrabel, and there can't be moving forward with a new hire. She certainly knows that. Vrabel knows that. And guys, if they gave him 100% control, then what she said about there not being any issues between those two would not be true this week if he now has 100% control.
That's a good point. And as you mentioned earlier, it's been hard to criticize anything that Adam Strunk has done since taking over as the controlling owner. But this move seemed out of character for her and for the team she's built. Guys, do you waver at all in your belief of her and the direction of this team moving forward based off of what you saw this week?
Me, no, not at all. She's a newer owner, so this is the type of moves that she makes. She said that she doesn't like to wait around to make major decisions like this, so this is what she does. So moving forward, I guess we can get accustomed to Ms. Amy wanting to win. And you said the team that was built, she feels this team that was built is not going to get it done this year. So let's start to get the rebuilding process going. Unfortunately, they're a playoff team.
Yeah, and Keith, aside from the timing, I love the message and the mindset of Titans ownership right now. It's time to win more than AFC South titles. Big investments have to pay off at a higher rate, and they definitely don't want to be rebuilding when they open the new stadium. They want to be in a much bigger championship window, and she didn't think they were going to be in one much longer than this year.
Yeah. There's still a lot of questions out there about this that will be answered in the upcoming weeks. But for now, big changes over there at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park.